All right, let me start, and anybody who wants to join in, that's fine, or they can watch the video. So we are in week 10. The semester ends next week, week 11. So the persuasive research report is technically due today. If it's not ready today, you can turn it in later, but I would probably not turn it, try to get it in by Thursday, the absolute latest, and I'll tell you why. You really want to make sure that you have a decent report because you're going to do the presentation on the report. So I have to turn these around as quickly as possible for you to know that it was okay. For instance, let's say you did a report and it's not persuasive, it's totally about something, and it's an informational piece. Well, you certainly don't want to present that. All right, so the sooner you can get the papers in, that's my priority right now. So all of my English 102s, it's not really the late work I'm catching up with. I'm trying to knock out all of these persuasive research reports so that they're all done this week and returned. Okay. The only thing left after this is the actual presentation. For the presentation, there's a couple things that need to be turned in. You're going to have a visual for the presentation, and we'll go over the guidelines because that's really only the purpose of this class today. And you're going to turn in an outline for the presentation. The latest date you can actually do that is Tuesday. Right? You can't be late on that. Like that one you can't be late on because we only have Thursday's class after that, and then we're done. If you absolutely need a little bit of time, then what I would suggest doing is you can turn it in on Thursday. Now don't turn it into, it's got to be done Tuesday because I got to give you feedback on it. I have to tell you, yes, it's good, yes, it's not good. Wednesday is pushing it, but you can turn it in Wednesday. But again, you realize that you're causing me grading nightmares because a lot of people are no longer adhering to due dates, and I'm like grading 24 hours a day almost to keep caught up. The final presentation, I will just say record it at this point, and the final presentation's got to be due Thursday of next week. There's no wiggle room. All right. Thursday is the last day to submit anything. The semester ends Saturday. I have to have everything graded by Saturday evening. All right. So I need Thursday and Friday to get through everything that's going to be turned in. All right. So 1 second. All right, so this deadline that you see here, last day to submit assignments, Tuesday, is that Tuesday or Thursday? Double check my calendar. I thought that would be Thursday. Yes, it's Thursday, not Tuesday. That's what I thought. So the last day to submit anything is Thursday, 4:30. I have Tuesday on here. It really is Thursday, 4:30, 12 noon. After that, that's it. All right. So, I mean, technically, if you have 745 points before the presentation, you don't even have to do the presentation because the presentation is worth 100 points. If you have 745, you've already passed the class. All right. But, you know, I would try to go for the best grade possible because some of you might be getting into some competitive admissions programs such as nursing or radiology, etc. All right, so again, the persuasive research report is due today. However, you can turn it in whenever, but the whenever should be no later than Thursday so that I can get it graded this week or by the weekend and return to you. All right, then you'll be working on the outline for the presentation, which is due on Tuesday. But again, if you need one more day, you can go as far as Wednesday for that. But that's it. You got only one day that you can extend for this. All right. And then the final presentations need to be recorded and uploaded. And I'm going to cover all that today for you. Does anybody have any questions at this point for any of the due dates? I've gotten everything returned. There's only like one or two assignments. I see there's an outline someone has turned in, I think a reference page, and then the persuasive research reports. So that's all that's sitting there waiting for me. So it's like 4 assignments. I will have those done today or tomorrow, the absolute latest. You know, unless I get an onslaught of a whole bunch of things, but I think most people are not going to finish. Most people are going to because they haven't contacted me and they have submitted no work. Okay, and I've sent emails to everybody. If you haven't gotten an email, you're good. And if you're sitting in here, you're good anyway. All right, so if there are no questions for that, I want to go back to D2L. So we are in week 10 because of the little bit of shift, and we lost the week and trying to push things back. So this is really under week 10, but you're actually probably not doing this stuff until next week, okay? So I do want to look at the guidelines first together. Get a little marker here. Okay. All right, so first off, you're going to take your persuasive research report and you're going to turn that into a presentation. In other words, you're going to present your paper to the class. You're not going to read your paper, but you're going to talk about your paper. You're going to talk about what your claim was. You're going to talk about the reasons, and then you're going to give some information about that. The actual talk needs to be between 5 and 7 minutes. So you're recording this on your own at this point. You're not standing in front of the people. You're not doing it on Zoom. You're just going to record it. You have full control over how much time it is. So please do make sure that you are between 5 and 7 minutes. Don't go over, and please do not go under. If you go under, you get a 0. There is no resubmission, especially if you turn it in on the 30th, because that's the last day I can take work. We're not going to worry about questions because obviously if you're going to just record this thing, there are no questions at the end, so you don't have to worry about that. So it's 5 to 7 minutes. All right. Sources. You're using the information from your persuasive research report. You should document these sources by including your references in your presentation. So if you talk about any of the research, make sure you have at the end a references slide. And again, it's the same thing that you have on your reference page, just copy and paste that. Do not copy and paste the entire references page, because if you're not using all of that information, you don't need all of that. Just whatever information you pulled, if any, from your paper, please make sure you cite it. When you talk about it in your presentation, you're just going to say, for instance, one of the articles that I read was by so-and-so, and named the person's name. In that article, they claimed that, and then you're going to kind of talk about it. You don't have to do any quotes, all right? You're just really talking about the research that you read. So you don't have to do direct quotes, and you certainly really are more or less paraphrasing. But if you mention an article by Smith, for example, it should come then on your reference page for the presentation because you are talking about an article by Smith. It always helps if you do give the article title. You do not need to say the place of publication, but the author and the title. And you can say, in one article published in 2010 by Jose Herrera, and then talk about it. So before you do anything, you need to have an approved outline. So your outline is, and there is the presentation outline. It says sample. I'm going to go to that now just to show you that. That's where you would find it on D2L. This is generic. Okay, this is generic. So it might not fit exactly the way you want. You should know by now how to do an outline for a paper or a presentation. You do want to write out your introductory paragraph. Okay, now there are some hints in here. Make sure in the introduction of your speech, you greet the audience. You use an attention-getting strategy. You identify and explain the significance of the topic. For instance, well, I looked at Head Start and the success of Head Start for schooling, and if that really does help students in the long run when they go to elementary school. The reason why I chose that is because I plan on becoming an elementary school teacher, and this is one of the programs that is very popular. So give a little bit of background information, tell us why that topic is important to you, and maybe give us a little bit of background about the topic. You do want to end the introduction of your speech with a preview statement. So what I'm going to talk about, 4 main parts. First, I'm going to talk about why people want to get rid of Head Start. Then I will mention all of the advantages of Head Start. For instance, increased intelligence, school ready, and an improved vocabulary. To conclude, I will, etc. Okay, so if you talk about 4 parts in your paper, then you might want to have 4 details. Okay, so if you have 4 reasons that you're arguing in your paper, those 4 reasons will become the 4 big parts of your talk. Again, it's 5 to 7 minutes. Your introduction itself is going to be about a minute 30 at most. Your conclusion is going to be about 30 seconds. So you're already at 2. You only need 3 more minutes of information. So don't go an overkill in the actual talk. You want to create the outline in outline form. Do not write complete sentences. Because when you present, you're going to be looking at the camera like I am now without a script. You may use the outline and have that on the screen as a little bit of help, but do not write out the whole text that you're actually reading it word for word, okay? So even though we are delivering it in an online format, I do want it to be delivered in a continuous presentation. In other words, don't stop, don't edit it, start to finish. And you still need to be kind of looking at the camera and not reading it. And it's very clear when people are actually reading the script, their eyes go down, and it's you can tell. Even though it's still the camera, you can tell. So like if you're not looking directly at the camera and you're kind of like looking down to read it, that will show up. All right, let me go back to the guidelines. So that was the outline. You need a visual as well. So the visual, it's going to be like a PowerPoint. I would just do a simple PowerPoint presentation. That definitely needs a references page slide. I would definitely have a title slide with your name and the name of your topic. And then it's up to you what you want to put in. Slide 2 can be like an agenda slide. Your preview statement. It might have the 3 or 4 bullets up there. First, I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about that. And if you have that up on the screen, of course, you can, use that as a help. And then perhaps you want to have a chart or a diagram or something. Do not write out your entire presentation and put it on the PowerPoint. No one wants to read, an entire presentation. This is a visual that will help accompany your talk. In other words, take out like the most important fact or statistic, or even a quote. You can put up a quote and use just the quote there. The trick for a good PowerPoint is to have as few words as possible. Because number 1, you won't make any grammatical mistakes. And number 2, you're not reading it. And number 3, you certainly don't want to read it to the audience. There's nothing worse. And you might have instructors like that have a PowerPoint up there in every class and they read the PowerPoint word for word. Like that's just not good. And if you have an instructor like that, sorry. All right, so that's the outline, that's the visual. The visual, it can be if you don't like PowerPoint, you can do something else. I don't care. In the end, you could probably just even do a Word document because we're not projecting that in the class. It would be just shown here, but PowerPoint is always the best. So it's a 5 to 7 minute extemporaneous, which means it's not read. You've practiced it and you're supposed to kind of just be able to talk about it. You've done all the research for it. So you've done the research for your paper. You should know the basic elements of it. So if someone said, so what'd you write about? If you really wrote the paper, you should be able then to summarize the paper for anybody. And that's what you're doing. You're just summarizing the paper. You're not going point by point. What were the big ideas that we need to know about your topic? What was the big ideas that you used to persuade me, the reader? How are you going to persuade the audience to go, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. I should do that too. Obviously, I don't care about the dress, what you're wearing now. If it were in the classroom, it would be professional clothes, but here it isn't. When you do the visual, make sure you introduce and talk about the visual. Don't just put it up on the screen. So you would say, well, in this slide, you see that, okay? Or up here, I have my agenda. First, I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about that, okay? So actually refer to it so that we know where to look. That we're either looking at you because you're presenting, or we're looking at your slide because you're directing us to do that. So make sure you direct us. A lot of people just put it up and they never talk about it. That happens in the classroom. It probably will not happen online. I think it's one of those easy things to do in the classroom. You put it up on the big screen and then you start talking and you never say, well, if you look at my visual, you see that, so you want to just do that. First, second, and third person obviously are appropriate because if you're talking to the audience, you can use you in this time, okay? We don't have to keep third person necessarily. Third person if you're talking about the research. One of the authors claimed that's in third person. But you're addressing the audience, that can be definitely second person, you, because you're talking to us, and you can use I because you are presenting. Okay. So again, you're presenting the research paper. You can omit, you can leave out some stuff, or you can add some additional information if necessary to get to your 5 to 7 minutes. Don't read the paper word for word. All right, and the rest of this really kind of goes about the structure. So the introduction is here and tells you how to do it. Definitely need a hook. People forget that a lot of times. People forget to introduce themselves. You want to make sure you introduce yourself, and then please give that preview statement. You know, write it out and practice it first. Who here, as elementary school students, went to Head Start? Ah, nobody. Well, my paper was on, I'm Dr. Cook, and my paper was on the benefits of the Head Start program. Head Start was created by Bill Clinton back in the early 90s. And it was a way to get inner city students and those in low poverty areas to be more ready for school and to have a better reading level. The reason why I'm interested in it is because I want to be an elementary school teacher. So I found this to be a really interesting topic because a lot of the talk today is about cutting it out. So I divided my presentation into 4 parts. First, I'm going to talk about the advantages in terms of intellect. Second, I'm going to talk about it levels the playing field. Third thing I'm going to address is that reading levels are better. And lastly, I plan on showing that it is a beneficiary program that should not be cut, even though it does cost money. So let me begin. Let me move on to my first point. All right, so attention getter, introduce yourself, introduce the topic, say why the topic is important to you, and give a preview statement. So we know I divided my presentation into 4 parts. We can count in our head when you go, okay, so let me move to the first point. We know you've got 3 points left. The body, like your paper, it should follow your preview statement. Whatever order you covered in your preview statement, make sure you cover that in your presentation. This is logical. It's just a matter of organization. Just like you did in your papers, your preview statement and the thesis statement, you want to go in the same order. Lastly, conclusion. Be sure to clearly indicate or signal that you are ending your speech. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I talked about the importance of Head Start, and I showed the 4 main benefits, which were or are, and then list them again. It's a brief summary. You don't have to redo the whole presentation, but indicate the presentation's coming to the end. Don't go, yeah. A lot of people, and like when in the classroom, they'll get to the end and they'll just look at you and they'll go, yeah. All right. So that brings me to the end. So is always a good signal word because it tells the brain to stop. I'm moving on to something else. Lastly, even though we're doing it on camera and you're not seeing anybody, thank you all for listening. Are there any questions? All right, make sure you thank and ask for questions. I'm going to have to change the rubric out and use the online rubric. I didn't think of that. So it would be slightly different. but it pretty much is the same. Introduction stimulates the interest. Do you have an attention getter? Check. Did you tell the audience of the topic and the significance? Check. Did you introduce yourself? Check. And did you have a preview statement? Check. If you have all of those, that's a 20. When you start missing some of the things, that's when you go down. Organization, content provides complete and compelling support for each of the points. If you talk about 3 points, make sure you have evidence for the 3 points. Uses examples. Includes relevant facts and statistics. All right, so bring in some of the data from your paper. Again, you don't have to do it word for word, but make sure you mention one of the articles that I read was such called such and such. In that article, the authors argued that conclusion signals the conclusion. If you don't say so, moving on, so coming to the end of my presentation, I'd like to, you got to have a signal. If you don't have the signal, you'll lose points there. Restate the main idea in an engaging way. Responds, so clarifies questions. That's what's different on the online rubric. It won't have that. You don't answer questions. Presentation makes eye contact. So you're looking into the camera and you're not face down reading it. Face down is never a pretty sight. At least I know on mine, it's not a pretty sight. And your visual is actually, the points for the visual is within the rubric of the presentation. So the outline is a separate points. The actual presentation and visual is on here. So the visual is worth 20 points. Okay, so let me go to one more thing. Can you see what I just searched? Okay, so
yes,
Screencast-O-Matic, and it's screencast-o-matic.com is a free tool. So like some of the videos I make in class or for my different classes, I use something similar. I use what's down here called Camtasia, but Camtasia costs money, okay? Screencast-O-Matic is a screen recorder, so we'll go to that. Okay. Now you don't want, obviously you don't want the paid version. So the free version doesn't do quite as much, but who cares? It gives you enough for the presentation. So you're going to go to where it says start recording for free. Okay. And it gives you a little bit of instructions. This is kind of what it will actually look like. All right. So the good thing about Screencast-O-Matic is, like on the videos here, your face can be seen the entire time during the presentation. So that way we know if you're reading or not, because we can see you. All right. So you want to make sure that you have it down so that you're not necessarily reading. All right. So capture any area of the screen with the thing. So let's go to free recorder and I'll show you how it works. And I should open up a PowerPoint. So once you hit launch free, you'll get this screen up here that says open recorder launcher. I'm just going to backtrack 1 second before I do that. And let me take out a PowerPoint just to show you how it's going to work. So this gives you a video tutorial on how to use it, actually. So that's a good thing. Download. So when it comes time for your presentation, you want to have the PowerPoint obviously open. I wasn't thinking of showing this, but it always takes forever. All right, so let me go back to Screencast-O-Matic. Sooner or later, it'll be open. Oh, I got the little wheel from death. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, so we're going to then open the screen recorder launcher. It's pretty self-explanatory, the whole thing, so it's not difficult to use, as long as your computer doesn't freeze like mine is doing. Okay, so at the bottom it's actually loading. And I hit open. You can probably do this on your own as well, just to see how it works. So just download the Screencast-O-Matic. The first time you use it, it's going to take a while. All right. When it does open, it gives you, like on this picture here, a little dotted line. That's the box. Whatever's in the center of that, that's what's recording. So have your PowerPoint open and make sure then that dotted box is actually over the screen, over the PowerPoint. You can still click the PowerPoint and advance if you want. Now it's finally opening. Yeah, there's the screen recorder. And okay, so now it's good. All right. Well, I'll give it one more try. If it doesn't work this time, then I give up. You may have to also change on your computer if to allow permissions. So what you should not do, please do not record in PowerPoint. I know in PowerPoint it is possible to do a recording, but the PowerPoint recordings are only per slide. So it's not actually one continuous presentation. You just record your voice on one slide, then you go to the next slide and record that. And that's not quite the same as doing one continuous presentation nonstop. So don't use the recording on PowerPoint, but use this Screencast-O-Matic. And then in the end, you have a couple choices of what you can do. The easiest and the simplest is simply to download on your computer the MP4 file. All right. MP4 can be opened anywhere. All you will do is you'll submit the MP4 to me. You can also upload it to YouTube, but a lot of people don't like that because they're afraid of, you know, putting stuff on YouTube and having people see it. So the secure way that no one else can see it, just you and me, is to have the MP4 file and to upload that. I'll have to go to my online class because there's a special place to put it, and I'll create that for you guys. All right, so where we are at the moment is the persuasive research work has to be done. Okay, so that's important. That's important. And then after that, you want to then work on the outline for your presentation, but that's based on your final paper. So if the paper's not ready, you can't do the outline for your presentation and the visual, right? The visual and the outline is due by next Tuesday. However, you can take to Wednesday. The actual presentation is due Thursday. That means if you turn it in on Wednesday, you're not getting a lot of time to practice. So you want to try to get it as quickly as possible so that you're not kind of rushing on the last day of the semester to get all this done. If you owe me anything, 4:30, 12 noon, that's the last time to submit anything. So if you owe me a pre-writing for this last essay, you know, please make sure you got everything in. So that's the last day I'm going to take any kind of work, is the 30th of April at 12 noon. There can't be any exceptions to that rule. That is the end of the semester, and the college is ending the semester on the date that they say, so that there's no extensions. Does anybody at this point have any questions? Most of you are pretty good because you've gotten or close to getting your final paper done. So then you really only have the outline, the visual, and the presentation.
So the Screencast-O-Matic website, that gives us the ability to actually record on there?
Yes. Okay. It'll record it and then it'll save it to, like, just practice it, because obviously it was not working on mine. I don't think it works as nice on a Mac. But when it comes time to record, when you're done, I think you hit share and it'll ask you how you want to do it. And you can upload it as a YouTube video, or you can just do the MP4, which is like the video file. As long as it's an MP4, I can open it.
And are we emailing that directly to you, or are you going to open a thing up on D2L where you can submit it?
Yeah, I'm going to put something on D2L where you submit it.
Okay, thank you.
It might be actually too big to go in an email.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, because sometimes these, you know, emails limit how big the document is, and I think the video file might be too big, so I will put it on D2L so you can definitely upload it. Any other questions?
We don't have anything until next week.
I can't understand you. You're kind of breaking up.
We don't have anything to do. It's point.
Yeah, I can't. You want to type it in the
Just
chat?
contact me. I'll just contact you on if anything comes up.
Brian, log out and log back in. So Mason and Taylor, if you don't have any questions, then you guys can go.
Okay, thank you.
All right, see ya.